On lap 7, Formula One legend Ayrton Senna dies in a crash that shouldn't have happened. But what really happened? San Marino Grand Prix began as a normal Formula One weekend. Later, it was called the blackest day in Grand Prix history. Senna arrived in San Marino in a great mood. He stayed in his favorite room at the Castello Hotel in Bologna. But he had no idea that the next few days would change Formula One forever. Room 200 is where Ayrton has stayed since his career at McLaren, during which he won all of his titles. This was his first year without them. You see, in 1994, Senna wanted a more powerful car that would allow him to compete for a fourth title. That's why he moved to Williams. The hotel was located near the track at Imola. In the morning, Ayrton arrived at the track by helicopter, ready to prepare for qualifying.
We are here in this third round at the European season, starting now, starting from zero. So basically our championship starts here, 14 races, not 16.
Senna felt the pressure. He had to show the best time. Suddenly, the rookie Rubens Barrichello flies into the air at 140 miles per hour. He gets into a very serious accident. It seemed that he was dead. It was a shock for Senna. Rubens was his close friend. Ayrton had been supporting him since childhood. He financed a karting competition for the young driver. Luckily, Barrichello survived with only a broken nose and bruised ribs. When Rubens opened his eyes, guess who he saw first? Senna made sure he was okay.
You've seen Rubens.
He's all right. He's all right. He's shocked, of course, but he's all right.
And set the best time in qualifying. However, even this achievement could not relieve him of his mental pressure, and he was worried about the reliability of his car.
Os carros, como eu já disse antes, vão de imediato são pouco mais instáveis com a retirada da suspensão eletrônica e pouco mais difíceis, então, com consequência de pilotar. Talvez tenha mais carros rodando, saindo da pista.
When Ayrton returned to the hotel, he felt deeply anxious. Senna could not shake the thought that he could have been Rubens' car. He was so concerned that he called his girlfriend, Adrian Galisto. She was surprised to hear Ayrton's voice, usually calm and confident. But this time, he burst into tears. He wasn't crying for himself, but for Barrichello. It was a rare moment of sensitivity that made it clear that this side of Senna was deeply concerned about the safety of the sport. Things took a darker turn on Saturday, April 30th. During the qualifiers, Roland Ratzenberger, a new Formula One driver, tragically lost control of his car while traveling at a terrifying 195 miles per hour. The car slammed into a concrete wall with brutal force. The Austrian drove over the curb, which damaged the front wing of the car. As a result, the wing came off in Tamburello's turning zone. Senna arrived at the accident scene in a security vehicle and immediately wanted to know the state of his friend. However, Ratzenberger had already left in an ambulance, so he inspected the wrecked car. Ayrton found Sid Watkins, F1's neurosurgeon who, a day before, saved Barrichello. He told him that although he was rushed to the hospital, Ratzenberger was clinically dead. Publicly, his death was pronounced only after he arrived at the hospital, as the regulations at the time dictated that a fatality during an event would freeze it, and that would cause even more trouble for the organizers in the midst of such a tragedy. The loss of Ratzenberger cast a shadow over the entire weekend, leaving Senna and the rest of the team in despair. According to Watkins, Ayrton broke down and cried on his shoulder. The two were extremely close, and Roland's death under such circumstances was truly tragic.
I said to him, he was the fastest man around. He won the championship. Why don't we both quit and we'll go fishing?
These were the final words Senna said to him. Later that day, Senna went straight to the Williams pit garage and said that Ratzenberger had died. Frank Williams, the team principal, asked him to continue qualifying, but he refused. One would think that Senna was able to process these traumatic events in peace, but things were just about to get even more intense for him. Back at the hotel, he encountered a lively and loud wedding celebration that had taken over the entire place. Though clearly upset, he reluctantly agreed to pose for a photo with the bride and groom. However, his demeanor was noticeably off. As soon as he got back to his room, he immediately called Adrian. She asked him how he was, and he started to cry again. Adrian said she initially thought Ayrton was still upset about Barrichello's crash the day before. However, when Senna told her about Ratzenberger's death, she realized the true reason behind his unease. He confessed that he had a bad feeling about the race and would rather not drive. Later, Ayrton called Adrian again and told her that he had decided to race after all, and when he won, he would show the Austrian flag and fly it on his victory lap in honor of Roland Ratzenberger and his country of birth. Senna said to his girlfriend with tears in his eyes, "I want to convince you I am the best man in your life. I will prove to you that I'm the best." Sunday, May 1st. On the morning of the race, the atmosphere on the track remained tense. During the driver's briefing, Senna openly demanded that the Drivers' Association be reinstated to fight for safety on the tracks. He received support from the drivers, and they agreed to take safety measures before the next Grand Prix in Monaco. After this safety focus, attention shifted to the start of the race. Despite the fact that Ayrton took the pole position, he looked nervous. When the starting lights came on, the race started. Suddenly, JJ Leto and Pedro Lamy
They'll have to stop the race, I'm sure, because there's debris on the circuit that is...
got into a serious collision, the debris of which flew into the crowd and injured spectators. A safety car came on track. Senna remained the leader, but was chased by Schumacher. This event only increased the level of anxiety on the track. The appearance of the safety car on a dry track was an extremely rare event. It was only the second time in the history of Formula One. That's why Ayrton called for it to go faster. He felt that his tires were losing temperature. When it was announced that the track was clear, the safety car was called back and the race started in the last part of the fifth lap. Senna and Schumacher immediately returned to the fight for the lead. Michael began to push with all his might. Lap 6, he's getting closer. Ayrton defended with confidence, but the tension was growing. However, on lap 7, after Senna's accident, his head was seen tilting to the left before returning to its original position.
I realize the driver's not getting out. I stand up, bang my fist on the table, and sound the alert. The driver's not getting out.
As soon as medics arrived at the scene of the accident, Senna was diagnosed with severe head injuries. At the moment of impact, the front right wheel came off along with the suspension elements and pushed through the helmet's visor. The force of the collision also threw Ayrton's head to the opposite side, causing multiple skull fractures. Although he was still alive, his chances of survival were slim. This was felt not only by the doctors, but also by the pilot, who just parked his car right near the crash site. How the hell did he get there?
Well, I'm gobsmacked. I think that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen at any time in my life.
It hit me. It was Eric Comas. 2 years ago, it was Ayrton who saved his life during a race. He was racing around the track, full of desire to thank him, but unfortunately, it was too late.
Et surtout, il y a une paralysie qui s'est installée chez moi parce que je me retrouvais à côté de l'homme qui 2 ans avant m'avait sauvé la vie sans rien pouvoir faire, et ça c'était terrible parce que lui il a...
Senna was rushed by helicopter to a hospital in Bologna. When the journalists saw drops of blood from the helicopter during the landing, it became clear that the situation was critical. Everyone was waiting for an official announcement, although hope was fading with each passing minute. A few hours later, doctors made an official statement.
Devo solo dire che gli accertamenti elettroencefalografici che abbiamo terminato 5 minuti fa purtroppo confermano quella che era stata la diagnosi clinica di morte cerebrale.
Ma non resta più alcuna speranza?
No, purtroppo nessuna speranza.
The official time of death, despite his breathing, was 14:17. exactly 24 hours and 2 minutes after Ratzenberger's death was announced. The remains of the Williams and Simtek cars were already under the protection of the Italian police for investigation. An Austrian flag was found in Senna's cockpit, which he had planned to display at the finish line in memory of Roland. The news of his death shocked Brazil. The government declared 3 days of national mourning in Senna's honor. Crowds of people filled the streets, grieving and angry. Why wasn't the race stopped? Who's to blame for the tragedy that took the life of a national hero? You might think that this would be the end of Ayrton Senna's story, but no. Few people know that there was a court that worked hard to find out the real cause of the crash. Many would like to believe that it was just an accident, but the Italian justice system thought differently. It took them 13 years to get to the truth, so what's the point? The case was headed by a small prosecutor, Maurizio Passerini, who had to stand up to the huge machine of the Formula One business and find the real cause of the tragedy. To begin with, he and his experts determined the causes of the drivers' deaths. A few days after the crashes, the autopsy results were made public. Passerini was surprised because it turned out that Senna and Ratzenberger had been fatally injured at the moment of impact. The investigation revealed that contact with the wall was at a very unfavorable angle of 22 degrees. At the moment of impact, the wheel was directly between the cab and the wall. The suspension part went through the top edge of the helmet and into Senna's head. Everyone started targeting the race management and medical staff because resuscitation that they performed on him was more in their interest. However, after investigating and interrogating all the race organizers, Passerini determined that the cause was not due to poor track conditions. In any case, Maurizio learned something new from the study of Ayrton's car. Experts from the University of Bologna discovered that the car's steering column had been modified. The original tube was cut off, and a thinner element was installed instead, fixed by welding. An electron microscope examination revealed signs of metal fatigue covering up to 70% of the steering column circumference. But the Williams team categorically denied this damage. They claimed that only 35% of the metal was cracked, and the column remained strong until impact. But this didn't convince Passerini. He realized that he needed to keep looking for facts about the steering column. Maurizio found another key piece of evidence: the video from Senna's dashboard camera. The prosecutor noticed that the yellow button on the steering wheel was significantly deflected before the collision. This is a very serious problem, because the average deviation can be about 4 to 5 millimeters. I was amazed at the time of the accident. The steering wheel deflection reached 28 millimeters. Imagine that the steering wheel of your car is constantly moving. I don't think you'll get far. Maurizio seemed to have solved Formula One's most difficult problem, but Williams had a different opinion. The team, led by test driver David Coulthard, showed a video from the team's base. In it, David demonstrates the movement of the steering wheel with deviations of 15 to 20 millimeters in different directions. With that, Williams claimed that this was absolutely normal. But to prove to you that the team was lying, let's analyze the movement of the yellow button at the previous Grand Prix. At the stages in Brazil and Japan, the fluctuations did not exceed 4 to 5 millimeters. The practice sessions at Imola showed similar minor deviations. After the restart in the 6th lap, the button movement remained stable. However, by the end of the 6th lap, the deviation increased to 8 millimeters. Just before the accident, it reached a whopping 28 millimeters. The investigation concluded that the modification of the steering column was made at the request of Senna himself. He wanted more room for his hands in the cockpit, but the responsibility of the quality of the workmanship lay with the Williams engineers. Passerini accused technical director Patrick Head and chief designer Adrian Newey of negligence, which in his opinion led to the crash. The court of first instance acquitted both of them, calling the incident an accident. So, were all of these efforts in vain? Not exactly, as in 2004, 10 years after the tragedy, a new appeal process brought a different verdict. Adrian Newey was acquitted of the charges, but Patrick Head was found guilty of negligence for lack of control over the modification. However, the statute of limitations on manslaughter charges in Italy is 7.5 years, and he escaped punishment.